Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Ange Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 2 quarterback rankings for the 2021 fantasy football season. On today's episode, of course, we're covering all topics related to the quarterback position, beginning with matchups. We'll talk about which quarterbacks have the most advantageous or perhaps the most disadvantageous matchups going into Week 2 and how that's potentially going to impact their overall upside. After we talk about that, of course, we want to talk about my top 16 quarterback rankings. For many of you, you do have a quarterback that is an automatic play, but we'll go ahead and give you guys my thought process and opinions and the statistics that justify my rankings, whether it is a quarterback you are going to automatically play or maybe go after one of these streaming options or one of the waiver wire selections that I went ahead and suggested earlier in the week, as they do have very advantageous matchups. We'll go ahead and cover all those topics relating to the quarterback position. But before we get into that, I want to remind all of you, this upcoming Sunday, like I do every single Sunday throughout the NFL season, I will be live streaming 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is kickoff with Kirchhoff, as I'll be answering and giving you guys updated rankings at the running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end positions, and of course helping you guys set your lineups before Sunday morning to get you guys to either 2-0, or of course for those of you who weren't fortunate enough to get a victory in Week 1, it's okay, it's only Week 1, don't panic. Get you back to that 500 mark by helping you set your lineups. Now, of course, if you're trying to stay up to date on content like that, whether it is a live stream, impromptu, or on Sunday morning, or the rest of my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I can't thank you guys enough for helping us get to 49,000 subscribers just as of late. We're on our way. Our goal was 50K, and we are certainly approaching that closely. So if you guys have not yet already, help us get to that 50K mark. Thank you very much in advance. Of course, for those of you who continue to come out, comment down below, smash the like button, join the community Discord server, which is all in the description of the video. Support on Patreon to find my entire rankings, whether it is half PPR, full PPR. I cannot thank you guys enough, of course, for that support. All right, now that we've covered all of those topics, we can get into Week 2 quarterback rankings. As of right now, this is going to be for a 4-point per passing touchdown format. If you need timestamps, they are also down in the description if you're looking for a specific couple quarterbacks that you want to hear my thoughts on. But I want to go ahead and begin by talking about matchups at the quarterback position going into Week 2 of the 2021 fantasy football season. As you can see to the left of me, this list, ranked 1 through 32, expresses how many points respective defenses gave up to opposing quarterbacks last week in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. Of course, the Tennessee Titans gave up the most points because Kyler Murray went for 34.56 fantasy points. Obviously, this chart is going to take some time in order to build up because the New Orleans Saints aren't always going to be giving up only 4.04 fantasy points because Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers aren't going to always have those weeks. They're not always going to play Green Bay. So it will take a couple weeks to kind of get used to it. But a couple of the teams that have always been giving up high amounts of points to opposing quarterbacks, which once again kind of resurfaced this past week, were, of course, the Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, the Atlanta Falcons. These are teams that year over year have continued to find a lot of struggles against opposing quarterbacks, mainly because their defenses haven't been good enough. Now, other defenses like the Detroit Lions, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans, they will be exposed over time. But I just wanted to go ahead and express to you guys these statistics, give you guys some context as to the matchups going into this upcoming week, my thought process on it. Of course, some of these defenses aren't going to be able to perform as well. So do not worry if your quarterback is playing against, the Los Angeles Chargers. I think Dak Prescott's going to be perfectly fine. He's going to be as consistent as ever, and he's going to continue the momentum as of the last couple games that he has played in the National Football League fully. Regardless, just wanted to show this on screen. I will kind of refer back to it as we persist through my top 16 rankings. And speaking of those, we can go ahead and move on and begin with our top 16 quarterback rankings for Week 2 of the 2021 fantasy football season. Again, like it says in the middle of the screen, rankings are subject to change. So if in fact you guys are looking for updated rankings, either Patreon for all the time updated rankings, asking me and getting answers to every single question you have during the 2021 fantasy football season, or you can go ahead again, show up Sunday morning, 8 a.m., 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, kick off with Kirchhoff. Thank you. All right, let's begin with our number 1 quarterback on the week. We have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's coming off of an incredible week, besides the fact that, of course, he was number 1 amongst all quarterbacks, putting up 34.56 fantasy points in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. In my 6-point per passing home league, he had 41 points, and he won me the week last week, and I was quite excited about it. But the couple statistics that were very surprising was the career highs that he set. Besides having a career high in passing touchdowns with 4 and a career high in total touchdowns with 5, of course, he accommodated his 20 rushing yards with a rushing touchdown. I mean, those are great numbers. against a very underwhelming defense, to say the very least. Of course, the Tennessee Titans year over year, they've tried to improve their defense, but haven't been able to find success in doing so. Regardless of that, Kyler Murray is an automatic play because, of course, his presence through the air, the success he's been able to find on the ground. This upcoming week plays against the Minnesota Vikings. Joe Burrow was able to find a lot of success against them. What was it? 2 passing touchdowns, over 200 passing yards, maintained a very early lead, and then began to run the ball heavily 29 times to Joe Mixon, which, of course, kind of dwindled down the upside of Joe Burrow, but ultimately was able to find a victory. The exciting part about this week, besides the fact that, of course, Kyler Murray is in a very advantageous matchup and is coming off a very hot week, is that the Minnesota Vikings, unfortunately for them, but fortunately for Kyler Murray managers, are going to be missing a lot of their starters. Anthony Barr, for the second week in a row, is going to be out. Hand, their cornerback, out. Darashaw, their interior defensive lineman, out, and Everson Griffin is going to be out. That's 4 starters on that defense, respectively, or at least rotation guys, that are definitely going to be missing. And with that being the case, it gives that much more credence to playing a guy like Kyler Murray, because he is going to find success, because the offense is just going to be churning out a lot of W's, and that defense certainly is going to be rushing the passer, trying to get after Kirk Cousins, force a lot of turnovers, and give Kyler the ability to just continue to score on short field advantages. All right, he's our number 1. We move on to Patrick Mahomes as our number 2. He himself had the second best quarterback performance this last week with 33.28 fantasy points in a 4-point per passing touchdown format, with 337 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 18 rushing yards, accommodated also with a rushing touchdown. We love to see the mobility of a quarterback. Of course, that is always going to expand and give us that much more value, because that rushing touchdown, accounting for 6 fantasy points, is ginormous. Now, of course, we know Patrick Mahomes is a stud. He's an automatic play every single week. I just wanted to give you more confidence going into the matchup, though a lot of people believe that the secondary and this defense is great. We saw Derek Carr completely torch that defense and put up great numbers, and that's kind of worrisome for the Baltimore Ravens. I know the Baltimore Ravens had to travel to Las Vegas on a Monday Night Football game, but with that even being said, Patrick Mahomes has also found a lot of success against this defense in the past. In the last 2 seasons, the last 2 times that he's played against the Baltimore Ravens, he has succeeded both times while putting up some incredible statistics. Last year, 385 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 26 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdowns, 5 total touchdowns against this Baltimore defense. And in the year prior, 374 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 9 rushing yards. The implied over-under as of this upcoming week for this game via Vegas is 54.5 points. This is going to be a shootout, but I think it's going to be one-sided in the direction of Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City-led offense. He's going to torch them. We have Josh Allen as our number 3, and though Josh Allen came off a very underwhelming performance this past Sunday, playing against that tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense, I do think he's going to get back on track this upcoming week, playing against the Miami Dolphins. You know, again, the 270 passing yards that he had for 1 passing touchdown and only 44 rushing yards, though it was a little underwhelming, 17.2 points isn't going to lose you the week. But the reason you went ahead and you picked up Josh Allen was to get those, 33-point games where he's going to have an absolute monster performance and, end up winning you the week by himself. Now, ultimately, playing against the Miami Dolphins, in my opinion, though many people may look at it as a difficult matchup because they're secondary, based purely on the coverages of their cornerbacks, but as of right now, I'm not really concerned about it. I mean, Josh Allen has found a lot of success against the Miami Dolphins in his career, and to be honest, I don't know when the last time he lost to the Miami Dolphins was. I mean, in terms of fantasy points that he's kind of put up against them, in the last 5 performances against this defense, he's put up 20.26, 34.5, 33.84, 21.28, and 41.46. He has consistently put in good numbers. And to be honest, the first number that I mentioned, the 20.26 from last year, that was in week 17, and he left in the 3rd quarter because they won 56-26. He wasn't even meant to play that game. He was supposed to just come in, get a couple reps, and then, of course, they had a playoff game the next week that they were trying to keep him healthy for. But he came in, put in incredible numbers, and just bounced and let Matt Barkley come in and kind of pick up the rest. But either way, Josh Allen, I think he's a fantastic play. Do not worry about him, guys. He's going to get back on track this week against Miami. We have Russell Wilson as our number 4. I mean, Russell Wilson is going to cook in the month of September. We know this. I've been mentioning it all week long. He's coming off of a performance in which he had 254 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 9 rushing yards for 27.06 fantasy points, all on 23 potential passing attempts. That's it. 23 passing attempts this past week, completed 18 of them. I mean, that passing completion percentage unadjusted is incredible. But in terms of his overall efficiency, he was certainly there. The offense looked as good as it ever has. And to be honest, playing against a tough defense like the Indianapolis Colts, it is surprising how much success that they found. Now, of course, he gets to play against the Tennessee Titans this upcoming week, and my goodness, is he going to have a field day. Of course, like I just mentioned earlier, Kyler Murray is coming off of a 5 total touchdown game against that defense, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground, and I certainly believe that Russell Wilson is not only capable enough, but can certainly match those numbers this upcoming week. Obviously, based on the history of Russell Wilson's career, he doesn't run the ball as much, especially down on the goal line. Doesn't get as many rushing touchdowns in comparison to a Kyler Murray thus far throughout his career. So obviously that 5th touchdown is probably going to be on the fringe, or whether or not it's going to actually end up being there. But I really do think that Russell Wilson could put up another great 4 touchdown game this upcoming week. Don't be surprised if and when he does so against this very lackluster Tennessee Titans secondary. We move on to Tom Brady and the thumbnail as our number 5. Tom Brady, again, is a fantastic quarterback coming off of a great week in which he had 4 passing touchdowns, 379 passing yards, and 29.16 fantasy points in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. Unfortunately, did turn over the ball twice, 2 interceptions, but in all reality, it doesn't really bother us. I mean, when we think about what Tom Brady is going to be able to do this upcoming week against the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, we know the storied history of him against the Falcons, but when he has been in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform and, of course, playing against the Falcons last season, he found a lot of success against that secondary. In fact, in the first game, 390 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. And in the second game, 399 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. I think as of right now, it is an automatic that you are playing him in this upcoming week's matchup against this defense. One of the worst defenses in the National Football League. Last season gave up the 2nd most points to opposing quarterbacks. Of course, we just saw Jalen Hurts go for an incredible amount of statistics and pass for 3 passing touchdowns against them and 264 yards. I absolutely believe that Tom Brady will be able to do a very similar number, if not even more, of course, through the air in comparison to a rookie running quarterback like Jalen Hurts. But either way, Tom Brady in a great matchup, got all the pieces you could possibly want around you against a very bad defense. Just an automatic recipe for success. Moving on to our number 6, we have Aaron Rodgers. Now I understand he's coming off a 3.32 fantasy point week. And yes, it is very unfortunate that he was only able to get 133 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns. He threw 2 interceptions. We get it. But that's not Aaron Rodgers. That was just somebody in an Aaron Rodgers mask that was playing a trick on all of us. This upcoming week, we are going to once again realize that Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, coming off an MVP year in 2020. The last time he played against the Detroit Lions, 290 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 13 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. We know that the Detroit Lions defense is one of the worst in the league. There's a reason why, of course, besides the pick 6 that Jared Goff threw, that offense for the San Francisco 49ers were able to put up a lot of points. So as of this current moment in time, we, of course, know this team is pissed off and they're coming back for some vengeance. They want to take it out on someone with a different jersey in specific. And unfortunately, their division rival, the Detroit Lions, is definitely going to fall victim to them this upcoming week. I think him and Adams and, of course, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan, they're all going to succeed this week and put up great fantasy numbers. We move on to our number 7. We have Dak Prescott playing against the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the Los Angeles Chargers matchup, because they didn't give up a lot of points to Taylor Heineke and, of course, the injured Ryan Fitzpatrick, it does not really bother me. We have Dak Prescott coming off of another performance of over 400 passing yards, 3 total passing touchdowns, 28.42 fantasy points. Now, as of the last couple games of his career, specifically the last 4 starts in which he's played fully. Of course, we're not going to count that game in which he played against the New York Giants last year, in which he sustained his injury. But in the last 4 starts as a starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott has thrown for 4 passing touchdowns in every single game. He's continuing to score 3+ touchdowns in every single one of those contests as well. I think he's just going to continue the pace. This is implied by Vegas, one of the highest scoring matchups this week, with a 54.5 over-under as well. This game, the Tennessee game, and the Kansas City game are all in that upper echelon in terms of what we expect to see in terms of high-scoring contests. I think Dak Prescott, with, of course, the receiving threats he has and the offense, the way that it is churning out a lot of success against a very good defense like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe Dak Prescott certainly going to find himself in a very advantageous position and putting up a lot of points in a high-scoring matchup. We have Justin Herbert as our number 8. On the other side of this coin, of course, we have Justin Herbert taking on the Dallas Cowboys defense, who obviously was exposed by Tom Brady, throwing 4 passing touchdowns, 379 passing yards against them. Justin Herbert is coming off of a very average performance. mean, putting up 14.3 fantasy points is nothing that we want to see, especially for a guy that we drafted assuming he was going to look a lot like he was last year. But let's take this into account. When I was going ahead and I was watching this game yesterday, just to kind of get myself a little bit more context as to what the issue was with Justin Herbert, why he wasn't able to score. We know they were playing against the Washington football team, but after I watched the Washington football team game, and of course we saw Daniel Jones putting up that many points in a very close matchup on Thursday night. I understand it's a shorter week, but the Washington football team didn't look great. So why exactly did Justin Herbert not succeed? Let's go ahead and go over this. In terms of the times that he got into the red zone and was able to go and score, these were the specific turnouts. The first drive of the game, they go down, they score a rushing touchdown. Great. Obviously, it doesn't help Justin Herbert because he only had one passing touchdown, but that's fine. The second time they got into the red zone, Keenan Allen on third down dropped a pass. That led to a field goal. The third time they got into the red zone, incomplete pass. Of course, one of their wide receivers that hit him in the hand, drops it, no big deal. And then he was sacked on a following play, which pretty much got them into field goal range. They kicked a field goal. Then the next time, he goes down the field in the second half, gets into the red zone, is hit on a passing play. They call it a fumble, and it goes out the back of the end zone, and they call it a touchback. That could have led to another touchdown. So that's 3 out of the last 4 opportunities wasted because mistakes or just not, maybe a bad call, but ultimately not great. The next time he gets into the red zone, throws an interception, unfortunate. And the last time, of course, Antonio Gibson at the end of the game fumbles on their own respective 5-yard line, sets up great field positioning, back shoulder throw to Mike Williams, touchdown. So there were a lot of opportunities for this Los Angeles Chargers team to score. That's what I'm trying to kind of paint the picture of. Now that you play against the defense like the Dallas Cowboys, in comparison to the Washington football team did, if they can go ahead and clean up those mistakes, we're easily going to see a 3 passing touchdown game from Justin Herbert. That's what I anticipate, and that is why I have him as our number 8 this upcoming week. Let's go ahead and move on to the next half of my quarterback rankings, beginning with number 9, Matthew Stafford. He's coming off a great performance against the Chicago Bears. We anticipated him to find a lot of success in said matchup because, again, he's had a storied history with that defense and was very comfortable with the concepts and everything that they throw at him. Regardless of that, we saw a lot of chemistry with Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, able to find touchdowns with, of course, Van Jefferson and Robert Woods. All in all, 321 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 24.3 fantasy points. We're going to take that any day of the week. Now, the thing is, he plays against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, luckily for him, he played against the Indianapolis Colts last season with the Detroit Lions, has some experience against that tough defense, had himself 336 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception against that defense. Now, when he gets an opportunity to face them again this year, we all know he is on a significantly better team, whether it is offensive line or receiving threats in comparison to last year. Xavier Rhodes, their starting cornerback, is going to be at once again Russell Wilson. Torched that defense for 4 passing touchdowns on only 23 passing attempts. I really do think Matthew Stafford is in line for a very successful week here in week 2, and that is why I have him as my number 9. We have Jalen Hurts as our number 10. Now, I really considered putting Jalen Hurts a little bit lower because I don't know what to expect from him going against a defense like the San Francisco 49ers. But when I looked at the San Francisco 49ers last week, I'm not really afraid of them. Again, I've talked about it earlier this week. Jason Verrett tearing his ACL is a huge loss for that secondary. Emmanuel Mosley did not play last week, maybe questionable this upcoming week. We'll keep an eye on that and, of course, update you on Sunday morning. But he's coming off a performance in which he had 264 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 62 rushing yards. I mean, those 62 rushing yards is pretty much like a rushing touchdown just in yardage. 28.76 fantasy points in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. I'm not really worried about this matchup. I mean, if Jared Goff is able to do what he did with 58 passing attempts, I understand. 58 passing attempts is a lot, but Jared Goff was still able to find a lot of success and really dice up that defense. And on top of it, when I think about this defense as a whole, yes, they've gotten a couple pieces back with Bosa being healthy. They still can't stop the quarterback from running the ball. It has been a plague that the 49ers defense have tried to stop year over year, considering they've played against Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray as of late. Russell Wilson, the last 2 times he played against that defense, is getting to about 30 rushing yards a game. Kyler Murray, the last 2 times he played against the 49ers defense, 91 rushing yards and 75 rushing yards. I think that the rushing yard total and the advantage that Jalen Hurts presents by always having to make sure that those defensive ends are keeping contained, they cannot jump inside, otherwise he's gone and running for a big total of yards. I think that is always a live threat and always gives an advantage for a quarterback like this in fantasy football against a defense that looked a little shaky in week 1. And if in fact they can take an advantage against them and find some success early, I think Jalen Hurts could have himself another big week in fantasy. We have Lamar Jackson as our number 11. I know I'm going to hear it, so just go ahead and pour it on. Andrew, I don't understand why you have Lamar Jackson at number 11. He's such a good quarterback. I know he is, guys. I know. I do this every day. I understand. I watch Lamar play. He's fantastic. But he plays against Kansas City. And you may be thinking, well, Andrew, Kansas City should be a shootout. It's a 54.5 point over-under. Yeah, I get it. But Lamar Jackson does not play well against them. In the last two contests that he's played against this Kansas City defense, he put up 14.18 fantasy points and 21.28 fantasy points. In the last two contests against them, he has only thrown one passing touchdown. And based on the fact that he's coming off a performance against a very easy defense, in which he only threw one passing touchdown and 235 passing yards, 86 rushing yards was great and pretty much saved his week last week. But to be honest, I'm worried. That's all I'm saying. You bring in Tyrann Mathieu back, this defense is going to certainly force Lamar Jackson to throw the ball. They've kept him in check year over year in terms of on the ground, not letting him get too out of control. And with Patrick Mahomes probably easily scoring against his defense, Lamar Jackson's going to have to air it out. And if and when he does, he's going to be in a position in which he's not as comfortable as when he is ahead in winning and using play action. I think that's a big issue. And I think this offense did not look very good last week. And hopefully they can turn it around. But until I see some signs of life that give me more confidence in this offense, I think Lamar Jackson is still an automatic play. Don't even get it misconstrued. I'm playing him in every single one of my leagues. But he sits at 11. So there it is. Deal with it. We move on to number 12. We have Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill, another quarterback that didn't have a great week. 15.18 fantasy points. Was barely able to muster up a 212 passing yard game, 17 rushing yards, one passing touchdown, one rushing touchdown, one interception. Pretty much all across the board got a little bit of action, but they just couldn't keep up. The fumbles that he had certainly played an entire toll on his ultimate fantasy value. This upcoming week plays against Seattle. I think there's a good potential that he could find success, but he's got to be able to stay in the game. He's got to be able to at least be protected by his offensive line, because if the pressure can get there, he's going to be in trouble. I've talked about it. In the last 26 games prior to the 2021 Week 1 contest, Ryan Tannehill had averaged about 248 passing yards and 2 touchdowns as the starting quarterback of this Tennessee Titans team. So we know he's going to get that 2 touchdown mark. I think that's going to be there with about 200 plus yards through the air. It's just a matter of whether he could take it to the next level. I think he finds himself back on track with the offense, looking a lot better than it did the week before. But either way, we put him at 12. Number 13 is Jameis Famous Winston, eating W's on the weekend. He's coming off an incredible performance of 5 passing touchdowns, 29.62 fantasy points in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. Again, 148 passing yards isn't the greatest, but to be honest, didn't really have to air it out that much. Did have a huge passing touchdown late in the game, and Jameis looked fantastic. I think this upcoming week when he plays against Carolina, I think that he's going to find success. I know in the past, if you go back to a couple of his performances against Carolina when he was with Tampa Bay, we have a couple 5 or 4 passing interceptions that are a little questionable, to say the very least, but I think he's kind of turned over a new leaf, and we're going to find a new Jameis Winston this week. Again, Zach Wilson was able to throw for 258 and 2 touchdowns against that secondary. That's a rookie quarterback in his first game without a left tackle because he got injured. I think Jameis is going to be in a far more advantageous position. Let's not forget, Jameis Winston having 37 passing yards last week was huge. And for those of you who are wondering, is he really a mobile quarterback? Absolutely. In 2018 and in 2019, he surpassed 250 yards in both of those seasons. I think he's got a great future ahead of him this upcoming season. And as of this week, is a solid play at number 13. Moving on to our number 14, we have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a pretty good game against the Minnesota Vikings defense. Now, this upcoming week takes on the Chicago Bears. Again, we saw that Chicago Bears secondary be their weakest point. Now, the question is going to be whether or not this offensive line can protect Joe Burrow enough in order to keep him in the pocket and air it out to his incredible receiving targets. Because we know Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and don't forget Tyler Boyd, he's going to be playing in the slot exactly where Cooper Kupp was last week and was able to exploit that defense. I think all 3 of these targets can have a very good game this week, and they've got to keep this quarterback protected. I, of course, think that the coaching staff is going to keep that as a main point of interest, whether it is keeping in a tight end on 11 personnel to keep him chip blocking for the left tackle, or leaving Joe Mixon in the backfield and having him chip before he goes out for a little route. Ultimately, I think Joe Burrow has a lot of potential this upcoming week. We have Andy Dalton coming into town, so it should be a very exciting matchup between these two teams. But either way, I think Joe Burrow's got a lot to prove and a lot to build on from last week's performance. We have Ben Roethlisberger as our number 15. He has made his first appearance on the top 16 list this year, playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. And I understand his performance of 188 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown is, underwhelming to say the least. Only 12 fantasy points in that game. But with that all being said, I think this Las Vegas matchup is very advantageous. They were giving up the 5th most points to quarterbacks last season in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. We know Ben Roethlisberger is eventually going to get back to doing his 3 passing touchdown kind of stint of games, and I think this is the week that he gets back into it. Of course, they did struggle mightily in that first half against the Buffalo Bills. Didn't have anything offensively accomplished, and pretty much had to do everything in that fourth quarter after the defense kind of set them up. But this upcoming week, I don't think they'll have as many struggles against the Las Vegas defense as they did against Buffalo, and should be an automatic success there. We move on to our final option. We have Teddy B. I think Teddy Bridgewater is in a very solid position, and there's a reason why I talked about Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston as guys to pick up in the waiver wire episode that I talked about earlier this week. They have such advantageous matchups, and specifically Bridgewater playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If we can see Tyrod Taylor perform as one of the best quarterbacks in a given week against the defense like the Jacksonville Jaguars, with the amount of chaos we're hearing out of there with Urban Meyer and all this kind of jazz, and of course the quarterback position throwing 3 interceptions. If Lawrence is going to throw the ball as much as he is, which he probably will because Teddy Bridgewater is going to easily go down and score, he's going to turn over the ball eventually. And if and when that happens, whether it is via the pass rush of a Bradley Chubb and of course, a Von Miller, or it is the pass coverage and the no-fly zone secondary that this Denver Broncos team is pretty much rebuilt, I think Bridgewater is going to have short fields. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. And though a lot of people are going to look to those running backs scoring, I think Bridgewater is going to be able to air it out a little bit. Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam. They got a lot of potential receiving options in that offense. And ultimately, Teddy Bridgewater is going to succeed this week. That is my opinion. All right, guys. Those are my top 16 quarterback rankings for week 2 of the 2021 fantasy football season. Do not forget, tomorrow we will be doing Hidden Gems. Sunday morning, we will have our live stream. And the following day, we'll have Overreaction Monday with our waiver wire episode, kind of making sure everything's according to plan. Make sure you subscribe. Click the like button down below. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't yet already, check out the Patreon for those of you who are trying to get all of your 2021 fantasy football questions answered. And until tomorrow, I'll see you guys. Peace.